Hey Zen fam. So, I've been having a wee think recently and talked with some of my other gaming pals about something I've loved for a very long time, Assassin's Creed. And I've been thinking about, the future of that particular franchise, what makes an Assassin's Creed game an Assassin's Creed game, what kind of gameplay mechanics essentially make it what it is, what detract from what it is, the bearing of the movie, all that kind of stuff. And I thought I'd try and collect my thoughts together with a little bit of stream of consciousness style with you, my wonderful, wonderful Zen fam. So join me on a journey as I sort of try and collate all this gubbins in my head. Game? I'm game. Right, so let's start where I started. When I first played Assassin's Creed way back on the PS3, I played it in my brother-in-law's bedroom one Christmas, trying to stave off, the family Christmas boredom. Played it for a couple hours, didn't think much to it, thought, let's see what all the fuss is about. Then, about 3-4 months later, one of my mates was giving away a bunch of games he didn't want anymore. He's always been a bit flush, and very generous chap, so he said, hey guys, I'm just getting rid of these games, I don't get next to enough of them from game. You lot may as well have them, share the wealth kind of situation. So I saw Assassin's Creed, I thought, hell, I'll give it another go, why not? And push come to shove, trade it in a game, get a little bit of extra credit for the next bit of software. That's what I'm always thinking, that's why I prefer physical games. Because I like to own my stuff and I like to trade my stuff for future stuff. But that's beside the point. So, I get Assassin's Creed home, and once I'm on my own couch with my own telly, with my own controller, then that's when the game clicks, because I'm able to I'm not playing it with a time limit in my head. I'm not playing it with the idea that I'm going to get rumbled and I'm not spending enough time with the family. You know what I'm talking to the gamers, come on. So, I am me, Assassin's Creed, and as simple as that game was at the time, with the repetitive side quests and the less than perfect parkour physics at the time when it was first released, and it was the only Assassin's Creed game, and it was the only game to really do parkour. It was revolutionary. It really was. I mean, okay, the story wasn't as strong as you think it could be when you balance it against stories today, but then, wow, different situation altogether. And I fell in love with Assassin's Creed. And I was playing the game and playing the game and playing the game. And then what was really kind of cool was I woke up on Father's Day that year, and my wife and my kid had gone out to game, and in one fell swoop they'd bought me Assassin's Creed 2 and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. And I delved deep into those games. I played every last single nook and cranny. I loved those games. I tore them apart. Absolutely fantastic. And that was it. Once I played as Ezio Frenzy Auditore, it was set. I loved Assassin's Creed. That was it. Played free. I even had a go of it on a Wii U. I played the Wii U version of Assassin's Creed 3. In fact, way back in the depths of the channel, there's actually a review of Assassin's Creed 3 on the Wii U. I didn't have that much of a go of it, I just wanted to compare and contrast. But I did that, because I just love Assassin's Creed. I mean, and I played 3 and I loved it, and I thought the ship combat was amazing, and you got to extend everything, and there was just so much to do. But of course, it was this, this is just when Ubisoft was starting to have this whole thing of everything has a tower, everything has maps. Ooh, look at all the findables. Just at the beginning of that, all that kind of Ubification, as some have come to call it. And then, I played Black Flag and so on and so forth. And at one point, my wife tried to get me I forget what the one was called for the Vita. It wasn't Freedom Cry, that was the add-on for Black Flag. That was, by the way, don't play Freedom Cry. It was mince. Good story, but the mechanics and the clipping, ooh, do not recommend. Avoid. Yes, so I played, Black Flag, and I loved that. I played that right at the beginning of PS4. It was a PS3 game and a PS4 game at the same time. It was cross-platform at that point, cross-generation. Sorry, and played it, loved it. Some of the fishing stuff was a bit, but I still loved the game. Like the Kenways, their story, that family story going through the Kenways, fantastic, And when I played Origins, it was a very different Assassin's Creed. And that's when, as much as I enjoyed Origins, it's the main reason why I never really ever got round to playing Odyssey. To the point where I wanted to know the story, but because I didn't fancy Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I actually watched the full-length video of it. When someone does one of those videos where they take all the cutscenes out, and all the beginnings and ends of battles, and just swishes it all down into one video. I actually sat and watched that because I wanted to know the story, but I want to play the game. So I'll put my hand up and admit it. I haven't actually played Origins. No, I mean Odyssey. Sorry, I've not played Odyssey. See, Odyssey, Origins, too damn similar. But by far, my two top favourites for battle in my heart, the Assassin's Creed games that I love the most, are always going to be Brotherhood and Syndicate. I know you're going to say Syndicate. Nobody played Syndicate. Nobody likes Syndicate. I did. I chuffing loved it. And that's where I'm going to get into this, because each one of these different games, whether it be Unity or Syndicate or Origins, and admittedly I don't know much about Valhalla because I've not got it yet, and that's where part of the inspiration of the video comes from, because I've been on the fence about whether or not to get Valhalla. Because is it an Assassin's Creed game? Because the main reason I didn't want Odyssey is because I didn't see it as an Assassin's Creed game. Now I know some people are, oh, this to me again. But that's how I felt. I didn't feel like it was an Assassin's Creed game. There's no Templars, there was no Brotherhood, there was very little in the way of Abstergo, and Modern Brotherhood going on. The Creed was not even there. Now, yeah, okay, you had Layla and she was doing all this stuff, and there was all the interactions at the end that if you've not played Odyssey yet, I'll not spoil it for you, but there's some interesting interactions between modern and ancient that oh yeah. That I did like. I did like the story. I thought it was a good story. But the fact of the matter was, if it hadn't been titled Assassin's Creed Odyssey, if it had been titled like The Ancient Odyssey or something, and all the Assassin's Creed hang-on bits, the Animus and all the rest of it had been taken out, and it was just a story set in ancient Greece, I probably could have had some truck with that game. But because they attached the Assassin's Creedness to it, but seemed to wipe most of the Assassin's Creed stuff away, and basically just had the title and had the hidden blade, it's like, it didn't really pan out for me. I just couldn't get interested. And that's where I kind of go, what's going on here? Because there was sometimes in Origins where yeah, it was the beginning of the Creed, so I could get behind that. but there's some things that stuck out a country mile. I mean, like the fact that the Bayek, or whatever you want to say his name, Bayek I think it is. Like there's one mission where he goes to like Roman baths to kill a guy, right? And he's meant to be completely naked, right? Apart from like a wee loincloth, because they can't have a naked character roaming around the game because they'll swing the camera around, and everybody can look at Bayek's junk. Yeah, that is just not going to happen. I mean, yes, a hedonistic time, but Ubisoft wants to keep that age rating where they can get the game out, and there are certain rules in certain countries about what you can and cannot do with the depiction of genitalia. So, loincloth it was. But anyway, other than the loincloth, dude's meant to be completely naked. No armour, no sandals, no nothing. But he's got his hidden blade. But his hidden blade is like here. And it's like attached to his arm. It's like, and you're walking around these Roman baths, and you're climbing walls, and you're knocking at the dudes, and you're doing sneak manoeuvres and all the rest of it. And you even go and kill the guy, and nobody reacts to you. I mean, the crowd reactions in that game were just, it's like nobody reacted to nothing. And like you could kill all the guys in an area, and as long as you took out the ability for them to raise the alarm, you would never have to worry about the boss that controlled that area. But half the time you could see the boss that controlled that area somewhere else, and then sneak it behind them, give them the old assassinate, and that was it. And there's certain problems that have cropped up. There have been some great game mechanics that have cropped up through the years, and it seems to be the case that what Ubisoft need to do with Assassin's Creed is corral and edit their ideas in a more convincing fashion. I mean, like, I loved Syndicate. Now, for me personally, I go, you can't do Japan. Don't get me wrong, I love Japan. I mean, you've seen these last few videos how I've had green screen behind me a bunch of Ghost of Tsushima. So don't get me wrong, I love the feudal Japan setting. But if Ubisoft go and do a feudal Japan setting now, everyone's just going to go, oh, copy Ghost of Tsushima. There's enough people going, oh, Ghost of Tsushima is basically the new Assassin's Creed. So you can't win on that one, Ubisoft. Don't even try. So I say, don't go right far back in past. Don't go right up to modern era. Stick it right smack bang in the middle. Do something like keep it in the British Isles again, okay, but bring it something up to date. So bring it to a point of political strife and public uprising, where the overreaching control of a government, smashing the freedoms of people and stuff. And what better area to go for than the winter of discontent? A little bit 1970s, early 80s, kind of British culture war, poll tax riots, the miners' strikes, all that kind of stuff. Have the story run through a bunch of years, have your character progress in skills and also begin to age a little bit, change what they wear as they're going through the periods, bring back the zip lines, the like Evie and Jacob Fry, bring that back. That was cool, that little Batman like grappling hook. That was kind of fun. That could be extended upon. But I think you need to bring back the fighting mechanics of Unity, because the Unity fighting mechanics, as much as Unity was a hot mess, its fighting mechanics were really nice, because you had different things to press and different ways to react to the fights that were going on. Whilst as much as I love Syndicate, it literally was smash the attack button, and the attacks would be different depending on how the fight was going. So if it was all ground, it was like a bit more kicky. It was all up, a bit more punchy. But what Syndicate did have, better than Unity, was environmental usage. So using like walls and glass and table edges and whatever else, using the environment as part of the takedown. Keep that. But there needs to be a greater emphasis again on sneaking and silent assassination. That has kind of been lacking in the last few games. I don't know how it is in Valhalla, because as I've said that yet, I've not bought it and played it because I don't know whether or not I'm going to like it. Every other Assassin's Creed, I've had a really good idea of whether or not I'm going to like it. And every time I've been proven right. Thus far, I've not played an Assassin's Creed I didn't like. You know, everyone obviously I've could nitpick bits out and go, that could have been done better. But on the whole, I've loved every Assassin's Creed I've played, apart from obviously Freedom Cry. But like I said, that still had a good story. So, if we bring back the sneaky, and like, once we got it back to sort of like, mid-70s, early 80s, Britain, then I think you can have a larger map, more, but a much more detailed map, because, we're in the 9th gen now, guys. Okay? We've got the Xbox Series X, we've got the PlayStation 5, we've got high-end PCs. I say we leave behind the 8th gen systems and create an Assassin's Creed game that is just for the current gen. And only the current gen. Right? Because we can no longer keep this up. If we're going to have these games that are going to be mind blowers, that are going to do all these amazing things, then we can't be hobbled by the last generation and its limitations. Because let's remember, when the PS4 and the Xbox One X came out, they were underpowered for their time. They could have been a lot better, but they were anemic systems running on fairly old hardware. But they needed to get those systems out. Those systems would have been good if they'd come out when they were supposed to have come out, but they didn't come out when they were supposed to come out because of the global economic slowdown and austerity and all the rest of it. So basically, because of the banking crisis, we didn't get those consoles when we should have got them. We got them a few years later, and by that point the technology in them was really, really old. Which also means if we'd got that, then we probably would have got the PlayStation 5 too soon, and it wouldn't be as nice as it is now. And some people say the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and Series X probably came out too soon because there's still bits missing from the systems that weren't in at launch. See, I'm in a bit of stream of consciousness type video. Okay, so let's all start adding all these bits up. We have a large, expansive environment that, let's say, doesn't take up all of the UK, but takes up, shall we say, the major metropolitan centres, places of interest at that time. And let's say each city, pertains to a 2 to 3 year period, perhaps. So you'll spend some time in London, you'll spend some time in Liverpool, you'll spend some time in Manchester, some time in Newcastle, and some time, let's say, because they're smaller cities and they're fairly close together, how about Glasgow and Edinburgh as a winner? You could even have a DLC pack where you knock over to Ireland and have a little delve in the Troubles. Now, that would probably be great for a lot of other developers, but you might find a sticking point when you come to Ubisoft, because Ubisoft always get a bit funny about dealing too deep into politics, because they're always like, oh, we don't do politics, we just place our games in the times of political strife, but we don't actually talk about the politics. And if you're going to stick a game, or even a DLC for a game in the middle of the Troubles, you're kind of going to have to talk about the Troubles. But if handled correctly and spoken about in the right way, it could make for incredible storytelling, It's I think it's probably fairly easy to say that the Templars would be behind you know, the making of Northern Ireland. You know, they would be behind all the trouble, whilst the assassins would very much probably be the ones that are trying to keep Ireland together as one deal, and fight for the freedom of the Irish people. But that's just a personal perspective. I could be wrong. But if I like to think I understand how the writers of Ubisoft write things, I figure that's where they would probably go if they had the cojones to write a proper political story. And you could deal with the early days of Scottish independence and stuff, and like when Ewan was young and stuff, and young Alex Salmond and that. It could be interesting, And you could deal with Scargill and Kinnock and Thatcher, and Harold Wilson, You see the early days, the high point of the BBC and all the rest of the mad music and fashions of those periods. You could really have a deep immersive world, and you'd have tall buildings and sewers and alleyways and phone boxes and pubs and supporters clubs and gentlemen's only clubs and stuff, and working man's clubs, and all manner of sort of establishments to sort of work your way into. Football hooligans, and hippies still knocking about to some extent, and skinheads, so many different types of group that you would either have to battle or work with or work against, or have temporary alliances that would then fizzle out, and then you have to sort of work your way out of them, whilst also increasing your assassin's network. Like back in 2 and Brotherhood, especially in Brotherhood, when you would actually recruit assassins and you'd have an assassin's base, and you'd have people that you would recruit into your assassin's group and make them into assassins, and they would help out sometimes in missions. You'd be in the middle of a fight, if you go, this is getting a bit rough, there's too many guys, and you hit that prompt, and a bunch of assassins would come out of the bushes or from tops of buildings and get joined in and get mucked in at the fight. It's a brilliant mechanic. And the more you sent out particular assassins, the more skilled they became. But then you had to be careful how much you sent them out, because if you did too much for them, then they would die, and then you would lose all their progress. Much like in Black Flag, when you had the ships. You sent the ships out on the missions, and you did that little mini game with the ships, and you're battling the other ones, and you try not to lose them, and you try to take them to the ships and take their resources, and the resources come back to you, and you get to upgrade the Jackdaw. Mechanics like that in a 1970s, 80s based Assassin's Creed, I think would be super, super fun. I think for this game though, we move away from Layla and we bring back the tech duo, with Danny Wallace and what I forget the name of the characters they played, and the other lassie, Remember we saw them in Syndicate, when they were breaking into the Abstergo office in London. I'd like to see a continuation of what they were doing, finding the Cloak of Eden and all the rest of it. That was all great stuff. And I think, continuing on the idea of, the genetic clones of Juno and all the rest of it, seeing how all that plays out, So obviously the modern bit is still very modern. And even though Ubisoft themselves have said the bits of the Assassin's Creed games that allude to the Watch Dogs universe are not canon, I say no, make it canon. Have a couple of missions set in the modern world, so you're not just dipping in and out of the modern world. Actually have some actual missions in the modern world, a couple of long string missions that actually feed in and out. So when you come back to the ancient period or the historical period, and you've shifted down 2 or 3 years to another city, it won't feel like such a break, because you'll have had a substantial time of gameplay, in the modern period, doing some of the stuff for that. And I think if you're doing that, then you obviously do work where the modern day assassins are working with DedSec. And I reckon that could get super interesting. In fact, if anything, you could probably base it a couple of years in the future, right? And basically use the DedSec from Watch Dogs Legion. You know, that idea. I mean, if you did this, then you could have an incredible game and really explore, you know, the link between personal freedom and digital freedom. The freedom of the soul from the assassins and the freedom of the people from, you know, DedSec. And the freedom of information. I mean, you were talking about some really heady concepts here. This could get big, you know. But then we got to start worrying about the little things. What do we do about weapons? Because you can't go walking about the streets of 20th century, you know, Britain with a great big battle axe or carrying a sword about, which is why you bring stealth back in, you know. It's like instead you got your hidden blade. You could do the 2 hidden blades. That's always fun, you know. We flick knife perhaps. Easily have the knuckle dusters because that's always a thing, and that's an easily, you know, hideable weapon. You know, a little animation when you go into a fight, where you dip your hand into your pocket, come out with the knuckle dusters on. That could be kind of good, you know. I think a little bit more of a martial arts basis. So like some martial arts have been brought in to this Squid fighting style. So a few more elbow strikes and headbutts, and bring in the knee. You know, a little bit more rotational combat. You know, learnings from all the different parts of the creed from all over the globe. Bring all the skills together under one house. You know, so from the Eastern assassins to the European assassins. You know. And the assassin members from the Americas, bring all their skills together, you know? And that's where you can really get into your skill tree. Because, yeah, you could have a firearm, you know? You'd bring in, like, you know, a small handgun that's concealable underneath your assassin-esque sort of robes, you know, something like, you would have the actual robes, but you'd have things that would be a bit like the robe in the clothing of the period. Obviously still have the hood, yeah, because you've got to have that anonymity. And we're talking about a time before there was any real effective CCTV. And of course when you're in the super modern period, then you obviously have the electroshock hidden blade, you know, so instead of actually stabbing somebody, electroshock them instead, you know? Or you would still stab them, and you stab them or electric and stab, you know? Have what you like. Build out the skill tree of that as well. Have 2 separate skill trees. Have a skill tree for your modern character, and have a skill tree for your historical character. I mean, you really broaden this out, and do it on XP. Don't do like, you know, earning currencies and stuff. XP point your way to things. Have actual progression built upon gameplay. No more stat boosters and all the rest of it. Actually build a game where it's built on what you do. So like if you do a lot of sneaking, then your sneaking gets better. If you do a lot of climbing, your climbing gets better. If you do a lot of street running, then your ability to wheedle in and out of the crowd becomes better. Much like in Grand Theft Auto, when you're playing as Franklin, the more driving you do, then you get to a point when you're driving, you can actually hold down that R3, and he does that mode where everything slows down and he can weave through the traffic better and have better control of the car. And Trevor's able to do that with flying and stuff. A bit of that would go a long way. So more detail, less fetch questiness, you know. I definitely have the missions where you have to go to this person and assassinate this person, and go here and liberate that area and so on. You know, build communications between different levels of contact for different causes to bring people under the the banner of the Brotherhood to fight for freer Britain. But obviously, there's only so much you can do because, hey, look where we are now. But you can have a little bit of a play with history, which is what Ubisoft loves to do. And I think if you bring about all the advancements that's ever been made with Assassin's Creed, and you get rid of some of the guff, it's like take away the stat boosters and the XP boosters and the like 3 or 4 different types of currency, it's like you could you could probably still have the Eagle Vision, maybe, I don't know. It's like there are different things you could do, and you could replace the Eagle Vision in the modern period with drones, which brings again in the DedSec element. There's lots you could do with Assassin's Creed to make it be Assassin's Creed again, but revitalise, not reboot, not remake, revitalise, bring back the energy and the excitement and the story and the character development, because that's the main thing that's been missing since Ezio. Ezio had character development. When we first meet Ezio, he's a self-obsessed, womanizing coward. And by the end of Ezio's story, he's a strong, stoic, thoughtful, skilled leader. And a prime assassin. He's like, but he's open of heart, but he's still a weapon of death. And I think if you have a game that's set over periods of years through different locations, then I think you have a chance to let a character grow across the periods of time. If you come back to him in a few years, and like you might have, he'll be a bit older looking. And you have like a little catch-up videos of like this happened, and you could change those videos to the decisions you made in the previous sets of missions from the previous time period. Which would then be like a catch-up in the Animus, so the Animus would like give you a sort of a catch-up session. Obviously, these catch-up sessions, you would have a couple of quick time events. So you're not just sitting there watching a video, you'd be invested in, because after all, gaming is an interactive medium. Anyway, I've rattled on for like half an hour on this. I'd like to get your perspective. What would you change? What would you edit? What would you fix? Would you agree with me? Do you wildly disagree with me? I would really, dearly love to get your input on this. I want to know what you guys think. Tell me. And while you're telling me, remember to tell other people I exist. Share me out. Share this video out. Because I'm not long cracked 400. And I really want to grow this channel. I really want to grow you, the Zen fam. I want there to be more of you. I want more people to enjoy this content. And I want to be able to get to a place where I can make bigger, better stuff. And I know I could do that if I get more people. I can increase the size of this family. And that comes from you guys. Anyway, like I say, I think I've rattled on quite long enough. So I'm going to let you have a wee think about that. You can get all typey down below. And I shall love you and leave you. See you in the next one. Hashtag support Scottish YouTubers. And of course, as always, aye, nae bother.